So, in maybe my last video, but probably not, definitely a recent video, I talked about some underrated books. Now we're going to talk about some self-published books. So there are two ways that I get my self-published books. The first one is a lot of self-published authors happen to watch my channel. I get a lot of emails, people asking if they can send me their books, and I usually will look up the book, make sure that it's something that I would normally read and am interested in, and if I am, I tell them go ahead and send it. And then the other way is I narrate audiobooks, and some of the authors I work with are self-published. I work with traditionally published authors as well. I work with publishers, but I work with a lot of self-pub authors too. So I have already done this video before, self-published book recommendations. I'll link that up high and in the description in case you want even more self-pub recommendations. And I will not be mentioning any of those books. Again, these are fresh, new self-pub recs. Let's start with a recent read, and that's Running into Happiness. So this is a nonfiction self-help book, and it's basically about finding your own happiness and contentment in the midst of a difficult or extremely busy season of your life. The author wrote this while she was in grad school, I think during her dissertation. She was extremely busy, had a ton of coursework, and in that time found that she really wasn't very happy at all. So she started doing a ton of research, looking up a ton of different psychologists, public speakers, people that have really studied brain chemistry and that sort of thing, finding happiness in your life. And she spent a ton of time researching a ton of different sources and basically compiled it all into this little bitty book. She cites all of her sources very thoroughly so that if there's anything that really draws your attention, you can easily dig deeper into that, look up those people, look up those books, and dig deeper. But if you just want a summary of a ton of different information compiled to help you find happiness while in school, while busy, while just in a really difficult season, but choosing your happiness in the midst of it, awesome book. I loved this book so much. I think that it was really well written, really well researched, and really well put together, composed, stated. It was just a great book, and I really recommend it. Next, we have Duel of Fire. So this is actually the one book that I'm not entirely sure if it was in my last video or not. So I'll be really brief about it because I kind of sort of think that maybe it was. This is another self-published book. This is actually one that I found just by scrolling Amazon, and I'm pretty much obsessed with this series, even though I still haven't finished it yet. Ugh. This is a young adult fantasy. It deals with elemental magic, specifically focuses on fire wielding. This is set in a world where fire wielders are not as common, and they are very, very suppressed, and cold fingers, people who don't have this ability, there's a lot of corruption in the way that they rule. We have two main characters, Dara and Civ, I want to say? Civ, hey, get on me. Dara and Civ. So Civ is a prince, and he is training to be able to defend his kingdom, and a lot is going down within the politics of the kingdom as well. Dara is a sword fighter, and she competes, and they kind of partner up. That's all I really want to say. It's young adult fantasy, and in my opinion, it has a setup that looks really familiar, but it ends up going in a direction that I really didn't expect and loved so much. It had the potential to go very typical, and it chose to go very unique, and I really, really enjoyed it. I have not finished the series, but I promise you I will. Next we have Cenote, which is another recent read for me. This is a horror novelette. It's only an hour long. It's an audiobook I did. The audiobook is only an hour long. So a cenote is like a cavern. Sometimes there's water at the bottom. Sometimes there's a way out. Sometimes it's nothing but a cavern. This follows two people who fell into a cenote, and there is no way out. They are trapped, or rather, there's no way out back to the top, and so they kind of have to find a way within the water, but there's also things lurking within the water. It's very brief. It's so good. It has stuck with me. I just really, really enjoyed this one. Next is Thea Knight, which I actually own a copy of, but I can't find. It's not on my middle grade shelf, so I don't know where it is. But Thea Knight is a middle grade fantasy. I read this a minute ago, so let me try to get there. Okay, so it's about a girl. Oh yeah. Ooh, okay, I loved this book. Okay, so it's about a girl. Actually, it may not be middle grade. It may be just really young adult. Either way, it's about a girl who, as a very young child, realized that she has magical abilities. She has a lot of different abilities. There's a list. And the beginning of the book takes its time showcasing her discovering her different abilities, thinking they're totally normal, bringing them up in conversation. Yeah, you know how you can do this, or having instances where things happen and noticing that it's not okay. And the things that she talks about and the things that she experiences are weird and scary to the people around her. And so she hides it, and she's learned how to walk differently and how to lift things differently so that, her strength doesn't show, so that her abilities don't show, and to blend in. Really, this first part of the book was my favorite part of the book, because when you're a kid and you imagine, what if I could? And you think about what it would be like to have different abilities, and what would it be like to have to hide amongst the normal people. This book did what I would have imagined. This book played it out in not like this big catastrophic, she's the chosen one and suddenly she's amazing at everything. Like, it was just such a normal, everyday imagining that I would have had as a child. And man, if I had read this at the right time, it would have been the perfect book for me. And as an adult, I still loved it so much. The book does eventually pick up. She meets an alien and some things go down. And it was actually, the other part of the book was great too. Just in general, it was a great book and I really, really enjoyed it. Next, I have My Only Sunshine, which is a thriller. It's categorized as young adult. I don't know if I would categorize it as young adult or adult. But anyway, the protagonist is 18 years old. It starts out with her, I think, 3 years? Yeah, 3 years after her capture. So I believe when she was 15, she was kidnapped and kept by her kidnapper. And she found a way out, and she was able to escape and get home, but she has suppressed all of her memories, and so she can't remember who did it, what he looks like, where she was, anything, and her captor has gone free, and he's also captured other children as well. He starts leaving notes and contacting her and finding ways to show, I know where you are and I'm coming back. From there, she decides, I'm gonna figure out how to access these memories so that I can protect myself and help the other children that he has captured. I loved this book. This book was so brutal in certain ways. This book had me on the edge of my seat. This is another book I narrated, and I had to read it twice. I had to read it the first time to know who done it and to get the characters down, and I loved it. And then the second time through, when I was reading it, I saw all the little clues that I missed the first time, and it was such an enjoyable read. Highly recommend this book. It was so good. Next is On Luna Time. This is a book that is a young adult time travel contemporary with a big emphasis on family. This follows a girl who was abandoned by her mom when she was a child. She grew up in foster care, and it picks up when she is 18, I think. So she's about to get out of her foster care and about to be able to live her own life. And in that, she finds that through a specific event, which I will not disclose, she is able to travel in time. Her family, the women in her family, are able to travel backwards primarily in time and spend a lunar cycle, which I think is 3 months, in another time period. And this book follows her journey back in time. And then some things go down. That's all I feel like I can say. I really, 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 really enjoyed this book. Time travel romance these aren't my buzzwords, but I really enjoyed this. It was just such a sweet, fun read. Next is one written by a friend of mine, Peace and Turmoil by Elliot Brooks is her name. Her name's Brooks. So Elle has a channel of her own here on YouTube, so I'll link that in the description as well. This is an adult fantasy novel with a massive cast of characters, as well as a dragon, and it is extremely political. Let me see if I can summarize what happens here. To boil it down very, very, very simply, there is a dagger that is really valuable, and it gets stolen and causes a lot of political unrest. There's a lot that happens in this book, but that's a really dumbed down version. This is a huge cast of characters, and they don't intersect for a while, so there's a lot of different plot lines happening, and it's a very political heavy book, so you would need to like that. I personally really enjoy political heavy books. The culture built up in this world is so well done. The magic in this world is so well thought of. Probably my biggest complaint is in this book is just that the scenery around, like the world, isn't really described hardly at all, and I wanted to see, like, world building is so important to me, and she did a good job with the culture and like the religions and the different things like that, but as far as the actual world and what it looked like, it just I was missing so much of it. And then there were certain things that I really wanted more from, but I loved this book. This book was, in my opinion, such a great intro into a series, and so many things started, and I see clues of where they're going, and I'm really excited to see where they go next. It's definitely one where you need to like large cast of characters, large scope of a story, and political intrigue, but if you like these things, oh man, it was a really good book. And it's a lot faster of a read than what you would think, because a lot of pages don't have very much on them. Like, there's a lot of artwork in the book, which I loved. So it's a lot faster of a read than you would think. I think it took me like a week and a half to read this beast. So you should read it too. Last book I'm going to talk about in this video is a nonfiction, and it's called Communication and Love in Marriage. This is a book that just talks about having a healthy relationship with your spouse, choosing to be selfless, choosing to look after their own good, and choosing to work together in harmony. I loved this book. It was so good, and there were a lot of things. I really love nonfictions that focus specifically on how to have a healthy marriage. I think you'll notice that in the nonfictions I pick up. I just really like that topic. And so a lot of what he said are things that I already believed and loved, but then he also had so many good nuggets in there that had me thinking, and things that Corey and I ended up discussing and wanting to integrate into our own communication. And just in general, it was such a good book. It was very short. It's definitely not a nonfiction that's dragged out. And he had so many good little nuggets in there to consider integrating into the way you communicate and interact with your spouse. So those are some of the self-published books that I've read recently that I have loved, that I recommend to you guys. I hope some of these sounded good to you. I hope you check some of them out. Chat with me some more about these in the comments. I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.